Thank you, Dr. Biddulph. We're now going to ask Zoli Kunene to come forward to speak on behalf of the Joseph Mandaza family, that is Nancy's family. Thank you, Zoli.
Good morning, Master of Ceremonies. Good morning, Mufundisi. I'm going to read it as has been written for me by Dr. Ibu Mandaza out in Harare. Tribute to Clarence Mazangwandile Biza Mini. On behalf of the family in Zimbabwe, and indeed on my own behalf, I hereby pay tribute to our son-in-law, Clarence Biza Mini, Comrade Amandla, as I have called him over the years. A reminder of our mutual history, historical background as former members of the liberation struggle that has made Southern Africa one country. The bonds that will forever bind us as families that straddle both Zimbabwe and South Africa, as in the common history and destiny of our countries, will remain intact. Yes, I am here to honor Biza as the former freedom fighter, an accomplished professional, medical practitioner, and manager, and above all, a husband and a father. Ever since his untimely departure on the night of 11 May, we have heard, and deservedly so, the acknowledgement from many of his comrades who remember him as Comrade Lazarus, his combat name, of the June 16 detachment that operated in southern Angola in the period of 1976 to 1977. A product of the Soweto uprising that is now one of the beacons in the road to liberation, not only in South Africa, but in the whole sub-region. Biza had this to say about the momentous decision he had to make at the time. After many years, I quote, after many years of student political activism and during the 1976 Soweto student uprisings, I decided that it was time for me to leave my beloved country of birth for exile, because it was clear at the time that I had only three choices: imprisonment, risking being shot and killed or exile. I chose the latter. This brought me into contact with the African National Congress in neighboring Swaziland and Mozambique. We were given a choice by the ANC to either go to school via Tanzania and finish our education, or go further onto Angola for military training as guerrilla fighters. I was in the angry group that wanted to go and receive military training so as to return to South Africa and fight against the apartheid regime that oppressed and terrorized our population so much. In Angola, we underwent military training by the Cuban soldiers. This lasted for 2 years. After military training, some were sent to underground operatives on the frontline states bordering South Africa, and others were deployed elsewhere to further their education. I was in the group that was sent to Sofia in Bulgaria to study medicine. I returned to Africa in 1986 after qualifying as a medical doctor. As a doctor, I worked in Tanzania, Zambia, Angola, Zimbabwe. At the end of 1989, I left Zimbabwe to work and study in Australia. At the end of 1990, the Trade Union Council of Australia invited the then president of the African National Congress, President Nelson Mandela, who had just been released from 27 years of imprisonment. He was invited to address the Union Council in Melbourne, Australia. Those of us who were ANC cadres living in Australia were invited to meet with him and to also indicate if we wanted to finish our studies or return to Africa. After 14 years in exile, I had absolutely no doubt as to what I wanted to do, return to my beloved country. President Mandela instructed the ANC office in Johannesburg to arrange for our return. So Biza's contact with Zimbabwe begins in 1986, coincidentally under a program in which I was the main architect, that is Dr. Mandaza, while serving as a public service commissioner in the government of Zimbabwe. This was the facility through which South Africans and Namibians would be trained and employed in Zimbabwe in the frontline stage at the time, in preparation for freedom in their respective countries. Biza, along with many others, like the now First Lady of South Africa, Dr. Tsepo Motsepe, were attached to various hospitals across the country as medical doctors. So it was while he was in Parari Nyata Hospital in Harare that he met his good fortune, our daughter Nancy, who was training as a nurse at that institution at the time. Talk about doctors snatching young nurses. Well, Biza married Nancy on 25 June 1988. He paid Lobola all right, but as is the African tradition, there is always that little amount that's always outstanding, not least in the form of cattle on hoof across the Limpopo to my farm in Mazawe, Zimbabwe. This brings to mind a conversation I had with another of my in-laws, Baba Walter Sisulu, whom I met in March 1980, years after Max and had married our daughter Eleanor in our house in Harare on 5 September 1986. When I raised the question of the outstanding cattle, Old Man Sisulu remarked, "Where can we get cattle when we have been without for so long, languishing in prison and in exile?" "That shouldn't be a problem in the months to come," I replied. "You should be able to get at least 100 Brahmans from P.W. Botha's cattle ranch." However, Biza had become a Zimbabwean by that time, as he had been for the rest of his life. Their first son, Vui Farai, was born in Harare on the 7th of August 1988. Their second son, Tawanda Yandi, was born on the 24th of August 1989, while Biza and Nancy were working in Chiredzi in southeastern Zimbabwe. And their last born, my Ambua Nomhle, whom I named Msodzi, which means tears, after her maternal grandmother, who is my sister. I was born here in Johannesburg in December 2001. Much has been said about Biza as an accomplished professional that he was, but so far, little has been said about the selfless character about the selflessness that characterized a genuine product of the revolutionary struggle for liberation. When we have in our midst, in post-liberation Southern Africa, former comrades who still blow their trumpets about their role in the struggle, more often than not exaggerated beyond belief, as part of entitlement to the gravy train and outright corruption, here is Comrade Lazarus. How many in South Africa even know of this humble servant of the struggle? When did you ever hear him sing the song of unbridled entitlement, let alone even claim that which he was justifiably deserving as a war veteran and exceptional professional? Yes, Biza is one of the many unsung heroes of our generation, a comrade who chose in his own words above to contribute to the liberation of this country and returned to his beloved homeland to work as hard as he did throughout. Above all, provide for his wife and children so comfortably over the years. Therefore, it is to Biza, the family man that I now know, not only in tribute to him personally, but also in the hope of affording some comfort to our daughter Nancy and our grandchildren Tawanda and Ambuya Namhle, whom I named after her maternal grandmother Msodzi Tears. Yes, it is a universal sentiment that children are named to reflect good or bad times in a family, but mostly joy and celebration too, as Farai or Vui in the case of their firstborn who we laid to rest just the other day here in South Africa, or Tawanda or Yandi in the case of their second-born, but in the naming, as I did their last-born after a maternal grandmother, it was merely to remind us all of our Msodzi, Nancy's mother, who passed away on the 29th of August, 1970, leaving behind 4 little girls, Jean, Nancy, Patience, and Edith. Never did I ever imagine that it would be tears, Msodzi, that would accompany Nancy in particular over the last 2 years. Farai Vui on the 24th of February 2018, and now Biza on the 11th of May 2020. I am lost. My friend is gone, Nancy wrote to me soon after Biza departed. I feel like I'm being punished. It's all too much, she added in obvious anguish. How can I lose 2 members of my family in such quick succession? I'm so grateful Petty is here. Tawanda and Namhle are devastated. So are Petty's girls, Katie and Malaika. And so, how do I comfort my children in the face of cruel and harsh fate? And when the enemy that took Biza is the same that now prevents our family in Zimbabwe, the United States, the United Kingdom, Cyprus, Grenada, and Kenya from being as close and around as we were 2 years ago as we mourned Farai Vui in February 2018 and remembered him in February last year. Therefore, in conclusion, let me honor and thank you all, Nancy, Tawanda, Ambuya, Petty, Karabo, Katie, Malaiga, Nina, Eleanor and Max, Zoli and Tidi, and all the friends and comrades, especially his close friends and comrades Bulelani Nguga, Vusi Pikoli, Ayandan Saluba, and the Minister of Health, Comrade Zelim Kize, to name only a few. I must also mention Biza's family. In 2000, I represented the Mandaza family at the funeral of his mother at their home in Cape Town, in the Eastern Cape, and I've been liaising with his siblings, namely his brother Eric and sisters Grace and Duva, as part of the preparation towards this funeral. We want to acknowledge the Mini family on this occasion for their gallant son, not forgetting the legendary Vui Mini, after whom Vui Farai was named. I wish on behalf of the family in Zimbabwe, especially the descendants of Ambuya Tambudzo, our grandmother, great-grandmother, and great-great-grandmother, and on my behalf, to thank you all for acquitting yourselves under such difficult circumstances, for accompanying Nancy and the children during this harrowing journey that has been Biza's for the last 6 weeks, leading to his untimely and unexpected end. For the enormous burden so far, this major and noble undertaking as Biza is laid to rest next to his son Farai. And you, Biza, Comrade Lazarus, my comrade Amandla, what can I say, Mugwasha, except to say how I regret so much that you never got to read my last message to you on 29 March after Nancy had informed me that you had been hospitalized. There it is again, my dear comrade. Hi, Amandla. I know you are recovering. You will recover. Keep well and call or message me anytime. I thank you, including you, Zoli, for reading my tribute to my Mugwasha. The words of the head of the family, Dr. Iba Mandaza, has written down for me to read. Thank you.